evening, you're watching The Social Network. I'm Kashish. Now here's an interesting situation. India has finally found its voice, although timid to raise their objection of reports of United States snooping on India. And now they're asking the United States to share their technology on how to decrypt conversations over several of the mobile apps that you and I use heavily, like Viber, WhatsApp, Skype, WeChat, and BBM, at a two-day summit in the capital, which ends today. Let's simplify this just a little. At the moment, the Central Monitoring System, or the CMS, allows the government to access all your data on all your communication devices. But looks like their technology fell short, and as a media report cheekily puts it, when you need help with a difficult problem, it's always wise to turn to an expert. This, of course, is an obvious reference to the mass surveillance and serious privacy breach for which the United States has come under serious attack. But there are no, if little, details about how much and whose data India wants to decrypt and what they will use it for. That's what we discuss on The Social Network today. Snooping buddies, India and US police share notes on snooping. Let's quickly introduce our panelists for the day. We've got with us in the studio Jayjeet Bhattacharya, who is a partner with KPMG, and he's also an IT policy expert. We're joined from Chandigarh by Arjun Sharan. He is a lawyer and an activist. And from the United States, we're joined by Neville Roy Singham, who is a founder and founder of ThoughtWorks Inc. All right, Jayjeet, I want to start with you first. They're saying that, in fact, one of their notes says that the availability of their web servers in India, of course, referring to the United States, is required for legal interception of communications in real time for timely action by security and intelligence agencies. So the case they're making is that we want access to all this information for security purposes, which is a case that is made by many, many countries. And I suppose it's a fair case, is it?
It's nobody will dispute the fact that you need surveillance for certain security reasons. That's not what the issue is. The issue is the moment you bring in IT, it disrupts the entire fabric of governance and the entire fabric of how the society operates. In fact, in your show, somebody had come and said that you are what your data says you are, in which case anyone and everyone is getting mapped by certain agencies based on how you're represented on the internet and how your conversations are with various friends and so on and so forth. Given the fact that you do need to intercept messages which are sent by people who are not necessarily friends with the country, but in that process you're also trying to monitor people who are completely harmless. Now the point is that how does the government differentiate that? Do we have the regulatory process to do that? Do we have the enough strengthening in the process within the government to do that? And the tools used are akin to having a gun in that sense, because at some point in time the guns were as dangerous and there were regulations put in, and you need to have a license to have a gun, and yet people are misusing the gun technology. You still have people walking around with a gun which are not licensed. So how do we make sure that when the government brings in these technologies, which they rightfully should, what are the regulatory mechanisms around it? What are the process changes that are being brought in to ensure that the rupture that happens in the current governance framework is not detrimental to the society?
Yeah. So you're saying in a sense that, even if the government makes a fairly solid case for wanting some of this information, perhaps if they were really serious about targeted surveillance in that sense, they would provide a regulatory framework which would not allow the abuse of that system. And I'm going to come back on that to Arjun in just a bit. But Neville, I want to bring you in first on this. One of the big concerns, one of the big reasons why we're talking about this in the first place is because of the fact that there is existing a central monitoring system in India which does pretty much have access to all of the data of all the citizens on all communication devices. And, in a sense, I remember Milind Deora had gone on record on a Google Hangout and said that your data is safer with the government than it is with the corporates. And that was the case that was made for the CMS. Look at it and talk about it in context with the lack of this regulatory framework that Jayjeet is talking about.
No, thank you. To me, I think the choices are not between the government or corporations, but quite frankly, neither. It is interesting to me that there is this convergence of why corporates want your data. As you say, your data is who you are. They would like to make money at the expense of your data, and they go in and analyze this. And governments would like access to this data to spy on you. I have become, in the last year after listening to all these revelations, come to the conclusion that citizens of the world ought to have their own privacy, which protects them against all outsiders. Because the idea of regulation sounds good in theory, but it turns out that technically regulating, this person has access, this doesn't. Technology is not like a gun in that sense. Once you let somebody have access to the technologies to find out what you're saying in your emails, in the end, everybody has access to it. Look at that story in Europe, where they found that they were capturing people's passwords. That same technology to trick you into giving up, to capture your password, is the same technology that the NSA uses and others. I don't see how you can have a system where the NSA spies, the bad guys spy, corporations spy, but you don't have any control of your data. To me, this makes no sense.
Okay, Arjun, if I could just bring you in. One of the arguments that the government has constantly given for the CMS, saying that the CMS is not going to be misused, which is one of the things that we're discussing here right now, is that security agencies will basically need to go through a whole bunch of checks and balances before any individual's actual data is accessed or given out, say by a corporate or by any of the companies that they feel are holding the data that they want to access. And that, they say, is the argument against our concerns of the fact that this data could possibly be misused. Do you feel that that's are you satisfied with that?
Not at all satisfied. We must understand, when we talk about all these checks and balances, I don't see them. I don't know them. The Indian public doesn't know about them. They are pretty much secret. Just as the US, where FISA courts give out orders day by day, similarly, an order by a home secretary to tap a phone or to surveil is completely secret. In India, when the CMS program captures all my internet data, my emails, my videos, my tweets and everything, where does it go? How much is it sharing? Is it snooping on me or not? Is it snooping on all internet users? Who is regulating this data? These are big questions and they cannot get away with this. We have seen how information which is with the government by snooping is misused. This power has been made by a British law back in the 19th century. In the 21st century, can we use the same tools is a big question.